She dropped the divorce papers between the salt shaker and the coffee mug. Didn't even look at me. Just said, "There. Now it's real." I hadn't even sat down yet. My jacket was still wet from the rain. And she, my wife of 7 years, was standing like she'd just completed a chore, like taking out the trash. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg. I just reached across the table, flipped open the packet, and started signing. My hand was shaking, not from anger, not even sadness, from relief, pure, nauseating relief. And she noticed. "You're not even going to ask?" she said. I looked up once, only once, and said, "Thanks for saving me time. But let me tell you why those 5 words hit her like a punch. Because I wasn't supposed to know. I wasn't supposed to know about him, or the hotel receipts, or the Bluetooth tracker I had hidden in her gym bag. I was supposed to fall apart, cry, shout, break something. Instead, I had a folder of my own. One I kept in my sock drawer for 6 weeks. And while she was busy planning her exit, I was planning a mirror. Everything she thought she was doing in secret, I knew. Every lie she told, I already printed. Every night she was at book club, let's just say I have footage. And no, I never once raised my voice. Because this isn't a story about revenge. This is a story about patience. And what happens when the quiet husband, the over-apologizer, the peacemaker, the man who folds her sweaters without being asked, finally decides he's done. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken. I'd stopped feeling that kind of pain weeks ago. No, I was awake because I was finally free to stop pretending. The house was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of her floorboards upstairs. She hadn't left yet. I could hear her walking back and forth, packing, slowly, like she was hoping I'd knock on the door and say something. But I didn't. I was downstairs, printing screenshots. See, the thing about being quiet, about being the husband who lets things go, is that people start to think you're stupid, forgettable, harmless. They don't realize that staying silent doesn't mean you're blind. It means you're watching. And I had been. Every day for the last 2 months. The gym bag she took every Tuesday and Thursday, I slipped an AirTag into a side pocket. She never noticed. You'd think someone who planned everything would have at least checked for that. But no. She was too busy checking into hotel rooms with E.M. I still don't know his full name. I don't need to. I've seen his license plate. I've seen him kiss my wife outside a Marriott in daylight, like they were some teenage romance. That was the moment it stopped hurting. Not when she pulled away in her sleep. Not when she stopped wearing her ring. But when I saw her laugh with him. That same laugh she used to save for our dumb inside jokes. It hit me. She was giving someone else my pieces. And I didn't even recognize the version of her he got. So I did what any quiet man does when the noise becomes too loud. I collected bank transfers from our joint account, $120 at a place called Bistro Palm, a charge at a boutique perfume store, a pair of earrings that never made it into our house. All of it logged with timestamps, dates, and screenshots. And now I had a folder, a beautiful matte black folder. Nothing dramatic, just 35 pages of everything she thought was invisible. She came downstairs around 6 a.m. Hair still damp, bags packed. She looked at me like she expected one final fight. One last, "Please don't go." Instead, I handed her the folder. She didn't open it right away, just looked at it like it was hot, like it might bite. "What is this?" she asked. I finished my coffee before answering. "Proof," I said. "That I knew, that I watched, that I waited." She opened it. Page 1. A still image of her with E.M. outside the hotel. Page 2. The transaction history. Page 3. Text messages she thought were deleted. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there, breathing in shallow gasps like someone had punched her in the stomach without touching her. I stood up, placed my wedding ring next to the empty coffee mug and said, "You were right. This divorce is mercy. For both of us." And I left the house before she said a word. But this isn't the end. Because 3 days later, she came back. Not for closure. Not for forgiveness. but for something I never expected. And trust me, it gets worse. She showed up at my door 3 days later. No warning. No call. Just her standing there in the same hoodie she used to sleep in, soaked from the rain. Mascara streaked like a confession she didn't know how to speak. I almost didn't open the door. And when I did, I didn't say anything. Just stared. She said my name once, softly. Then asked, "Can we talk?" Like we were still normal. Like she hadn't walked out of our life like it was a boring movie halfway through. I let her in. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to know why. Why now? Why come back after being so confident, so collected when she ended things? She didn't sit. She paced. Wrung her hands. Bit her lip like she was trying to swallow her guilt. Then she said it wasn't real. I blinked. What wasn't? She looked at me like I was supposed to just understand. Him. It wasn't real. It was stupid. I don't even know who I was. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't an apology. It was damage control. She wasn't sorry she did it. She was sorry it cost her the image she built. The one where she was the smart one, the stable one, the one who left on her terms. My silence had thrown her off. My calm dismantled her narrative. I didn't chase her. I didn't beg. I signed. I smiled. I handed her the truth like a mirror, and she hated what she saw. She tried to say more. Something about a mistake. About how things didn't go the way I thought they would. I cut her off. You thought I'd fall apart. She didn't answer. And that was my answer. I opened the front door again. This time not to let her in, but to show her out. She hesitated. Tried to reach for my hand. I stepped back. And I said the most honest thing I've ever said. You left. That was your choice. But coming back? That's not yours to decide. She didn't argue. Not because she agreed, but because she didn't know who she was without control. And as she walked back into the rain, I realized I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. But that peace didn't last. Because the next day, I received an email from her new boyfriend's wife. Subject line, "You and I need to talk." The email sat in my inbox for 6 hours before I opened it. I must have hovered over it a dozen times. You and I need to talk. No greeting. No name. Just that line and an attached screenshot. At first, I thought it might be spam until I saw the picture. It was a selfie. A woman in her 30s. Blonde. Business casual. And standing in the background, blurred but unmistakable, was the man my wife had been sneaking off with. He wasn't smiling. In fact, his eyes weren't even on the camera. They were locked on Yelena, my wife, who stood beside him at a cafe I'd never heard of. She was leaning toward him, laughing, wearing the green sweater I'd bought her last Christmas. The caption under the photo simply read, "This was 2 weeks ago. He told me he was at a leadership retreat." I finally replied. Just one word. Call. She sent her number. We talked for 58 minutes. Her name was Dana, and she'd been married to him, whose real name apparently was Elliot Marsh, for 9 years. He was a VP of logistics at some mid-size firm and traveled often. Or so she thought. She hadn't suspected anything until she found a backup phone in his golf bag. That's where she saw my wife's name. Dozens of texts. Some recent. Some over a year old. Dana wasn't emotional. She was focused. Cold even. She wanted facts. Dates. Receipts. She already had a PI involved. "I'm not calling to grieve," she said. "I'm calling to make sure your wife doesn't get to walk away clean." I didn't know what to say to that. I'm not the revenge type, but I couldn't deny the strange feeling rising in my chest. Not rage. Not satisfaction. Closure. But the dark kind. The kind that whispers, "You weren't crazy." I told Dana everything I had: screenshots, location logs, financial records. In return, she sent me emails. Bank transfers between Elliot and Yelena. A copy of a hotel reservation in both their names. A note scribbled on a napkin. "Can't wait till he's gone." I think that's when something shifted in me. I'd spent so long trying to keep my marriage alive that I hadn't realized it had been dead for a long time. Killed slowly. Quietly. With every lie told over takeout dinners and work trips and cold silences. And now I was talking to another casualty of the same wreckage. But Dana wasn't done. She had one last request. "Do you have any of her family's contact info?" she asked. I hesitated. "Why?" "Because you might want to warn them," she said, voice flat. "I'm about to blow this open in a way neither of them can recover from." I didn't give Dana my ex-wife's family contacts. But I didn't stop her either. By the time we ended that call, I had this weird adrenaline rush pulsing through me. Not because I wanted revenge. I didn't. But because, for the first time in months, I wasn't the only one who'd been gaslit, discarded, left in the dark. I had company. Someone else out there had also been lied to, manipulated, made to feel like background noise while the people we loved rewrote their stories without us. The next morning, I woke up to 14 missed calls from Yelena. She never called. Not once since she'd walked out with her pre-packed luggage and her cold, rehearsed goodbye. But now, after Dana had no doubt made contact, she was trying to reach me. I didn't answer, but I did check her socials. And I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Her name was trending. Not globally, obviously, but enough to set off sparks in our city's professional circles. A Reddit post had gone semi-viral on a local forum. An anonymous woman, married to a high-ranking logistics exec, had laid out a detailed timeline of her husband's affair with a married branding consultant who gave inspirational talks on female empowerment while sleeping with someone else's husband. No names were mentioned, but people guessed. Fast. The comments were brutal. Screenshots from LinkedIn. Photos from her seminars. Someone even found an old blog post where Yelena wrote about the power of honesty in modern relationships. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She was being roasted, mocked, dismantled by the very internet presence she had carefully curated for years. And for a second, I pitied her. Then I remembered the napkin note Dana had shown me. "Can't wait till he's gone." Not, "I'm scared" or "I'm confused." Just excitement, anticipation. Like I was some burden she was counting down to escape. So no, I didn't stop any of it. But I also didn't expect what happened next. That night, a burner number texted me a video. No caption. No warning. Just a shaky clip of Elliot, her affair partner, arguing with someone in a parking lot. It was loud, messy, and very public. Someone else was filming it from inside a car. In the background, you could hear him yelling, "She lied to me. She said he was abusive. That he cheated first." I played that line back 5 times. That he cheated first. She painted me as the villain. To justify it. To clean the guilt off her story. And just like that, I realized Dana wasn't the only one Elliot lied to. Yelena had spun a whole fake narrative to him, too. Maybe she even believed it. Maybe it made it easier to do what she did. But she hadn't counted on the truth surfacing. And she definitely hadn't counted on me being the one holding the receipts. She didn't knock this time. She used the key. I was in the kitchen, boiling pasta, when I heard the door open and close. I didn't even turn around. I just said, "You still don't get it, do you?" She didn't answer. Just stood there, breathing like she'd run a marathon. I let the silence stretch. When I finally turned to face her, she looked like someone I hadn't seen before. No makeup, no polished posture. Her hands were shaking. Not from sadness. From panic. "You need to tell that woman to stop," she said. No name. No apology. Just accusation. I let out a dry laugh. "You think I control her? Dana is 10 times more composed than either of us ever were. She's not going to stop. She posted my work information, my speaking events. My family saw it. Did they see the receipts?" I asked, tilting my head. "The hotel dates? The texts about me being too dull to notice? Or maybe the photo of you kissing Elliot outside a rented SUV while I was home making dinner?" Her expression hardened. "You're enjoying this?" "No," I said. "I enjoyed us. I fought for us. I mourned you for months while you were already with someone else. What you're seeing now is called indifference. You burned the house down and now you're mad it's cold." She stepped closer. I could see her lip tremble. Her voice dropped to a whisper, like if she said it loud, it would make it too real. "I didn't want it to be like this. I nodded slowly. But it is. Then she made a mistake. She said, if you don't help me shut this down, I'll tell everyone you orchestrated it. That you and Dana planned it together. I blinked. The water on the stove started to boil over. And just like that, the last piece of affection I had left for her evaporated. I took out my phone, unlocked it, scrolled down and tapped the file I'd labeled failsafe. It was a voice memo from 3 weeks ago, the night she came back crying. The one where she said, it wasn't real. He meant nothing. I just got addicted to the attention. I turned the volume up, let it play in full. She froze. Every time you talk, I said, I keep records. You're not the only one who knows how to spin a story. The difference is I have the truth. She didn't say another word, just turned and left, her hands clenching and unclenching like she wanted to scream but couldn't find the air. That was the last time she entered my house. But the story wasn't over, because 3 days later, I got a package with no return address. Inside it, a flash drive, and a note. You deserve to know what she said about you behind closed doors. The package was small, maybe the size of a paperback book. No return address, no branding, no explanation. Just a plain brown box that looked like it had been hand-delivered. Inside was a USB stick taped to a folded note. The handwriting was clean, sharp, not familiar. It simply read, you deserve to know what she said about you behind closed doors. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me wanted to burn it and be done. But the other part, the one that had stayed silent through every cold dinner, every unanswered text, every distant excuse, that part was still wide awake. And he needed to hear it. All of it. So I plugged the drive into my laptop. There were 6 files. All audio. Each one labeled only by a date. I hit play on the first one. Yelena's voice filled the room. She was mid-conversation, laughing. The kind of laugh she used to save for our dumb inside jokes. Except this time, she wasn't laughing with me. She was laughing about me. He's just so boring. He reads manuals for fun. Who does that? The other voice, Elliot, chimed in. You've said it yourself, he's like a ghost. Always hovering, but never there. She laughed harder. Exactly. Like, if I disappeared for a day, I don't even think he'd notice. That one cut deep, because I had noticed. Every hour, every change in rhythm, every time she pulled away and said, I'm just tired. I played the next clip. He makes these little happy noises when he cooks. It's like living with a cartoon. I swear, sometimes I feel like I'm babysitting a man-child. I stopped the recording, not because it was too painful, but because I was afraid of what else I'd hear if I kept going. Afraid that I'd start believing her version of me. But that's when something clicked. These recordings weren't just casual venting. They were deliberate, clear, almost rehearsed, as if she knew she was being recorded. Or worse, as if she wanted them to exist. A setup? Insurance? Blackmail? I replayed a few seconds with that new lens. Suddenly, her tone felt exaggerated. Performed. Like someone writing a script. But for who? I checked the final audio file. Different setting. Echoes. Public space. A male voice, not Elliot. Deeper. Asking her, are you sure he's unstable? If this goes to mediation, they'll ask questions. Her answer chilled me. I've kept notes. If I need to paint that picture, I can. That's when I knew. She hadn't just betrayed our marriage. She was preparing to assassinate my character if I ever fought back. She didn't just want freedom. She wanted to win. I didn't confront her about the recordings. I didn't send a threatening email. I didn't call a lawyer. I just saved the files, backed them up twice, and added them to the growing vault of truth I never thought I'd need to protect myself with. That night, I sat outside with a cup of tea and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Stillness. Not silence, I'd had plenty of that. Not numbness, that was the middle of the story. This was something else. It was like standing in the ruins of something once beautiful and realizing the wreckage wasn't your fault. Realizing you did your best, even when someone else decided to weaponize your kindness. I spent the next few weeks quietly untangling what was left of our shared accounts, changing passwords, canceling subscriptions. Every click felt like cutting another invisible thread, and each one made it easier to breathe. I never heard from Yelena again. Dana and I still exchanged the occasional message. She said she finally filed for divorce, and that her husband's reputation took a bigger hit than she ever planned. Not because of her, but because of his own arrogance. The truth, she wrote, has a funny way of finding daylight. I've started doing something I never thought I would. Writing. Not about her. Not about the affair. But about the little things that survived it all, my weird cooking habits, my obsession with manual instructions, the way I hum while boiling pasta. The parts of me she mocked. I realized I don't need to change those things. They were never the problem. Now I live in a smaller place. Fewer rooms. More light. I wake up earlier. I eat slower. I read more. I really laugh with people who see me for who I am, not who they want me to be. This story isn't about heartbreak anymore. It's about freedom. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds someone out there that being too soft isn't a weakness, that trusting too much doesn't make you blind, and that walking away quietly can sometimes be the loudest thing you ever do.